What's up, everybody? Todd at 51% Crew. Got in the mood to make a video tonight. So now that the Bulls are back in town, I see a lot of people posting their charts again and drawing their lines. So I have to sit here and just laugh at some of them and shake my head. But tonight we're going to talk about support and resistance. Before we get started, though, I want to say a couple things. I'm not going to edit this video. I'm not some YouTube star. I'm not doing this for likes. I'm not doing this for views. I'm not doing it for anything like that. I do this because it seems like people enjoy this and they like to learn. So the goal of this video is basically to hopefully give you some tips and tricks, and it's not going to be perfect. That's nothing's perfect in the real world, so we're not going to do a perfect video here. So like I said, let's go over a little bit of support and resistance. Support and resistance is probably the most important thing when it comes to trading, whether it's in a crypto market or any other market, obviously. Probably, like I said, it's got to be the most important thing there is. So the question is, how do you identify the support and resistance? I could go on and on for hours about this topic, and show you moving averages, clouds, Fibonacci, trend lines, all kinds of stuff. But I want to basically just go over a few basic things right now. Like I said, hopefully you pick up a couple tips or something from it, and that's basically the goal of the video. So when I open up my chart here and I look at this chart, I see so many support and resistance zones. And what I'm doing is I'm basically doing all this in my mind, but we'll draw these on here with lines so they can visually represent things for you and you can see what I'm talking about. So a lot of people come in here and they'll take a trend line like this and they'll say, okay, here's a high and here's another high. So obviously we got to connect these, and that's our resistance. Or they'll come in here and they'll say, okay, well, here's a low, here's a low. Let's connect these and draw this, and there's our support. Which, yeah, we can make that argument that this is support and that's resistance, but what is this really telling you? What information is this really giving you? Obviously not much. What are you going to do with this? It kind of tells you the big picture of the highs and things like that and the lows, but it's nothing really actionable or tradable at this point in the market. So let's go through here and look at a couple different things. First thing that really pops into my head when I look at this chart is I see a support through here and I see resistance that turned into support and stuff like this. So what I'm seeing here is basically somewhere about here, maybe. So I see one through here. I see another one through here. So you see how I'm not perfectly drawing these off the wicks? I'm kind of using a combination of wicks and bodies. That's how I'm seeing the support. Actually, I'd probably want to move this. See, you're not going to get these perfect. Well, you could if you sat here long enough. But the thing is, when you first lay these down, obviously, you're going to have to sit here and tweak and adjust them to see which one looks the best to you. And eventually you'll get an eye for things like this. So this here, theoretically, it shows resistance, and that resistance got broken, came back up here, and it broke through it though, but it got eaten back up. You see how that candle closed there? So they were trying to support the former resistance. Same thing comes through here. Just because these wicks came down through here doesn't mean that this is the support at the end of these wicks. The support comes through here with the bodies and the wick combination. Because look how this played into later. We came from here through here, and this came into play. These are 4-hour candles, so this was probably the next day this came into play. So don't be afraid to sit here and draw these on your chart and play around with them until you get them in the right configuration you need. When I come through here, I see another one too. So I see one that comes down about right here. So just because this thing came up in price action here doesn't necessarily mean that's where the support is or the resistance is of a market. You can clearly see that it came up through price action, but these markets are so violent, it got rejected. But it came back up through here and broke through, and look how this candle supported it. Then it came higher, they tried to support it again, and it failed. So once it failed through here, it fell all the way down here, et cetera, we'll move on. And then it came back up and it tested this price action again. So you see how it got rejected, finally broke through? Once it broke through, what happened? The next candle here got dumped back through it, but it got eaten up. Let me move my mouth cursor. See how that candle got eaten up? So that's where your support is. That's where your resistance is. You know, this line doesn't have to be from wick to wick. You can tell it comes through here in play. But this set up a good trade later on if you look further down in the market. If you would have been identified this and the breakout of it, so it broke out here, it turned into support, you could have traded it off of here. It came back here and it could have traded it off of here again because you identified the former resistance, now turn support. So that's the goal of this. You know, eventually you'll get to the point where you'll just be able to open a chart and look at it and visualize this. You won't even have to draw these lines. But for now, draw them on there. It's not going to hurt anything. You know, adjust them around what you need to. You know, move them up and down and see which one fits the best. And there you go. Now, this is a very interesting area of price action because we had a breakthrough of the resistance and it found support here. But there's an intersection. So now you have this diagonal support and this diagonal support. So it made a nice intersection here that basically had two different support and resistance levels, or I should say support levels. Sorry, it's getting late, I'm tired. So, but you get my point. It made an intersection. So there was a good, nice support zone here. You know, we can come back through here and let's see if we can find one up here. Here's another one. Yes, that's a wick, that's a wick, that's a wick, that's a wick, that's a wick. So this is another example of it that didn't cut through price action. But perfectly acceptable. Definitely a resistance through here. So I'm sure a lot of people were trading that. Where else do I see one? I think I see one through here. This looks like one too. Right about, I'd say through here. Now, this was a resistance at one point. Broke through. It found the support argument here. See how it argued in price action through here? And then later on came into play at the intersection. So here's another one. So like I said, these don't have to be wick to wick, and they don't have to be exact. I mean, you know, these markets are so violent, they're going to argue back and forth in these areas. So expect a wick to come through or expect one body of a candle. But that doesn't mean that that's not the resistance or that's not the support. Let's go back through here. I see another one. If I come down through here, I see this trending down and flagging out. So when it flagged out, I see it come through here like this. Now, a lot of people would sit here and do one of these. They would try to hit the wicks on that, which, yeah, I mean, we can make this argument here. But I also see this. So you got to, you know, you can't take your eye off the prize. So when I look at this, I see the resistance come down through here, and it broke through the resistance. And what happens now? Now it's theoretically turned into support. See how the candle popped above it? So we would really probably have both of these on here. But the one I think that's the major player out of those two would be this one. So don't be afraid to split this up. You know, if that's where the support and the resistance is, that's where the support and the resistance is. You know, the market's what determines that, not your lines. You know, Bitcoin doesn't care about your lines. It cares about support and resistance. So that's just a couple ideas of, you know, the thinking process through here and identifying some of this. So now that we've covered a little bit of diagonal resistance and support, let's look at some horizontal. why did this thing, let's ask ourselves this while I'm clearing these out. Why did this hit this and get rejected? I can clearly tell you why. If we come here off of Fibonacci of our last big major move, so we're going to swing from high to low. Okay, so now we have a 1272 and a 1414 Fibonacci level in this area. This is what our concern is at this point for the price action. It came up here and it took off like crazy and got pumped, and look what happens. It got rejected here at this Fibonacci, at this horizontal support. But look how it retraced back to here, and it found support at the 272, resistance at the 414. So it ping-ponged back and forth between here with the argument of price action. Eventually it failed. They tried to hold it up with this candle, but it got trapped underneath it here. And what happens to former support? Former support now turns into resistance. So the main key area of focus is here is a support and resistance level right through there. Former support now turned resistance. So that's a way to identify it too, horizontally. So now we have diagonal and horizontal. Now we want to, you say, all right, Todd, that's great. Well, what about this and what about this? It came down through here, and this is a big gap in price. We're talking what? About $300 here. So this isn't exactly that accurate. I mean, it's perfectly legitimate. It's not incorrect, but it's not exactly as accurate as we'd like it to be. So let's take, and like I said before, sometimes you got to play around with these lines and these Fibonacci's to get them to, fit the market and see the most commonality between what's going on here. So let's try one from here to here on this swing high to low. Oops, I didn't grab it. Just give us a little bit better price action. Not too hateful. It doesn't show us our top, but I didn't expect it to on a tighter range, but it still showed us the support here. Now, I'll show you one I know is incorrect, but I'm going to do it because you're probably going to run across this. Now, what about here, this swing high to low? I mean, technically it's correct, but it doesn't give us that much data. This isn't the one you want to be using at this point. It's drawn correctly, but it's not the one that's giving us our relevant data now. So what about taking this and swinging from low to high? Let's try that. Now we can come in here and let's look at it like this. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. We had our 236 retrace through here, and now this turned into resistance, so that's fine. It found support at the 38.2, found support at this 38.2. You're going to say, oh yeah, Todd, well, price came all the way down here. Yeah, it did, but I still consider this a support level because it really didn't start closing candles below it. The body of this candle got up to here, and it got eaten up on this wick. So I'll move my crosshairs so you can see what I'm talking about. So, this is probably the one you want to be using at this point. You're going to have to play around with this because, like I said, just because I did this one and it worked, it might not work on every market, Ethereum, Litecoin, and all your other shit coins, whatever, So don't be afraid to play around with this. Like, you could pull this back to here and say, okay, well, this isn't too bad, but I don't think this is the one that everybody's using. So let's pull back here. Maybe, it shows a nice resistance here that could turn into support later. But like I said, don't be afraid to play around with this and get the most accuracy out of it that fits your need and your trading style. I'd say I would go with this at this current point in the market. Let's try a swing high to low and see the detail in this. Not too bad. I mean, it's definitely showing the resistance through here, support through here, but when this market took off like this, we didn't have this low here to pull off of. So originally, you probably would have had to pull off of this low. So it takes a little bit of time for price action to, fall back into sync with everything sometimes when it does this, when it takes these, parabolic moves like that. So don't be afraid to play around with this and identify it. That's what's going to, get you to that level where you're at. I'm not really going to go into like all the cloud settings and, moving averages and everything like that. I just wanted to kind of, like I said, make a video and give you guys a couple tips, and hopefully you picked up some tips from this. It's not meant to be some perfect video. I'm not going to sit here and edit it to be the next YouTube star. I really could care less about that. It's not really my goal. Um, I think that's about it. I just wanted to go over that and show you that. I'm sure somebody's going to ask. What I'm using is Aurochs trading software. I'll put the link down in the description if you guys want to check it out. Other than that, I just, I don't want to make these videos too long. I don't want to go on for hours about this. Probably been about 15 minutes now. So hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you can apply this to your trading and got a couple tips out of this. I guess I'll catch you on the next video.